All right, I'm going to try to do this one fast for you so you don't have to watch a movie all day. Although movie watching is fun, but some of you don't think math videos are the most fun movies to watch, but I personally do. But I'm trying to help you here. We're going to go ahead and start with the warm-up. So pause the program and come back and see how you did. All right, here we go. Negative 50 minus negative 30 is the same. When we have double negatives, that means plus the opposite, plus 30. So negative 50 plus 30. Negative 50 wins the sign game. And we take 30 from 50, so we get 20. Okay. First for this, we double 4.2 because it's 4.2 times 2, so that's 8.4. And then we multiply the same base, so we add their exponents. So when we add negative 6 plus negative 4, we get negative 10. All right, here we got w equals 11 because we add 8, and so 4w equals 44, so w equals 11. This one, I'm going to show you what I did just to give you a visual. So we're going to basically find 15% of $24, right? Because we're rounding. So 10% of $24 is $2.40. 5% is half of that, so that'd be $1.20. And when you add those together, you get $3.60. So that's how I do 10% plus 5%. And we can get 10% just by moving a decimal and then half it for 5%. Okay, this time we move the decimal over 3 places, so we go from 800 grams to 0.8 kilograms. And then $1 is 4/5 of M. So if it's 4/5, 1/5 is a fourth of this. So 1/5 is 25 cents. So 5/5 is $1.25. Okay, now we are going to solve equations like we've done before. We've seen this before. 4/5 times x equals 7. And I do want you to notice, again, I've talked about this in class, but 4/5 x equals 7 is the same thing as having that x move up to the numerator, see that, over 5. These are equivalent statements. Sometimes you'll see it this way, sometimes you'll see it this way, and that is the exact same thing. The x cannot move down to the denominator. It's the numerator, just because it's kind of over 1. So that means it can move up in with the 4. And so I just want you to know those are the same things in case you run into that later, okay? So we have solved these before. We want to get x by itself, so we multiply by the reciprocal, and that is 5/4. Okay, multiply both sides by 5/4. These cancel out to 1x equals, and then if you want to show that 7 is over 1, just so that you make sure you multiply 7 times 5. So 7 times 5 is 35 over 4. Here's the nice thing. In algebra, you get to leave it like this. And so the book is even letting us leave it this way, 35/4. You don't need to divide, 35 divided by 4 and get a mixed number. You can leave it as an improper fraction. So that's exciting. All right. Now, though, we are starting with a mixed number times x equals 5. The only thing we have to do is add a step in order to solve these, okay? Is we get rid of the mixed number and turn it into an improper fraction. That's the whole new skill today. So you're going to go 3 times 3 plus 1 to get it into an improper fraction. So 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1. So we get 10/3 x equals 5. And now it's like what we've done before. Okay, we're going to get x by itself, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal to get rid of that thing. Okay? And so those cancel each other out, leaving us with an x, which was our goal. And I'm going to cross cancel. We could do 15 over 10, right? But then we're going to have to reduce later. Let's cross cancel. 5 goes into itself once and goes into 10 twice. Okay, so what we get is 3 halves, and we get to leave it like that. Okay, so that's kind of a nice thing about moving on to algebra, is we don't have to convert everything back to a mixed number anymore. All right, now same thing, just we convert both sides to an improper fraction. Okay, so we rewrite this as 5 halves y equals 8 plus 7, 15 eighths. All right, and then solve just like we did all the others. Multiply, we want to get y by itself, so you got to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 5 halves, which is 2/5. And those cancel each other out. And I see a lot of cross-canceling that can happen, which always makes me happy. 5 goes into 15 3 times, goes into itself once. 2 goes into itself once, and into 8 4 times. So we have just done all the work, haven't we? We can't even multiply. We're just left with 3/4. Okay. Now it is good to take what we get and check it. Okay. The book didn't have us do that, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'd rather check this with the improper fraction form of this. So if I were to check this answer, I'm going to take the equation, write it as the improper fraction form. Okay, and that was 15 eighths. And I'm going to plug in 3/4 for y, right? And see if that is a correct statement. Then we'll know that we did it correct. So that's 15 over 8 equals 15 over 8. Life is good and happy face, true. So we know when we do these in a test, we can always check to see when we are solving equations, you can always find out if your final answer is correct or not. Okay. I did not like missing problems for a period of time in my life, and so I did all the checking for a test. Okay, now we're going to talk about negative coefficients, negative numbers. Okay, there are 2 ways to do this. There's the reciprocal way or just the division way. Okay, let's do the division way, and then we'll do the reciprocal way. So that means go ahead and rewrite this over here. And we're going to, now we've got negatives, and we're going to do it the exact same way. In order to get x by itself, we have to divide not by a 3, but a -3. Because if we do that, these guys will cancel each other out, right, and leave us with our x alone, which is the goal. So if we divide this side by a -3, we divide the other side by a -3. Okay, so now it's not 126 divided by +3, it's 126 divided by -3. Okay, a lot of people forget. This is where if you are in a rush, you might miss that there's a negative in that problem, and so you got to be very careful. Slow down. So 126 divided by -3. Well, we've got one negative, so we're going to have a negative answer. If 126 had been negative, this would be a positive answer. Okay, so we have a -42 is our final answer. And again, we can always check that. We can say, oh, is -3 times -42 equal to 126? Well, we do know 3 times 42, because I told you, is 126. So a negative times a negative. We've got 2 negatives, so that's an even number of negatives. They pair up and become positive. So yes, happy day. That did work. Okay, that's one method. That's my favorite. The book also wants you to know that you can do this just the way we did on the page ahead of this. Okay, where we can, to get x by itself, we can multiply by the reciprocal of what he's with. Okay, so if it's negative 3 over 1x, if we multiply by the reciprocal, it's times negative 1/3. Are these reciprocals? Yes. Okay, so then that goes to, they cancel each other out, and the negatives become positive 1x. And in order to do that on that side, we also have to multiply by negative 1/3 on this side, okay, which gives us negative 42. Okay, so you can do the reciprocal for whole numbers. It doesn't have to be a fraction stuck to the x, it can just be a whole number. Okay, this is personally my favorite, but we want you to know that they are one and the same. Okay, so let's do example 3. Negative 2/3 x equals 4/5. Now I'm going to write it over here because I'm pretty jammed up over there. It's a little crowded. So in order to get x alone, I got to multiply by the reciprocal of negative 2/3, which is negative 3/2. So we got to do it to the other side, negative 3/2. Make sure these are always the same. And make sure that these can cancel. That leaves us with just an x. Okay, and I see that 2 goes into 4 twice, goes into itself once. So now I'm going to multiply straight across. Remember, when you're multiplying fractions, straight across. So we have 2 times negative 3. Well, there's only one negative in that question, so the answer is going to be negative, and it's going to be negative 6 over 5. Okay, now can you check that? Yes, you could go, all right, is negative 2/3 times negative 6/5 equal to 4/5? Okay, and let's see. Okay, we get a negative times a negative, 4/5 equals 4/5. We did it right, and life is good. Okay, all right, now we've got a decimal and a negative, and that's okay. You can have negative decimals. So with this one, I'm not going to do the reciprocal thing. I'm just going to say, okay, if I divide both sides by negative 5, then these will cancel out, giving me a positive 1x. And so now I've got 0.24 divided by negative 5. Now, I'm just going to deal with the negative right now. Because we have one negative in that question, the answer is negative. And so I'm really trying to think of, okay, what's 0.24 divided by 5? Okay, well, here's how we can, one way we can do it. Okay, 5 does not go into 2. So we have to put a placeholder there, but and it goes into 24 4 times. Okay, so we're going to have to give a 0. Bring it down. 40 divided by 5 is 8. 8 times 5, and we are done. So it looks like we get negative 0.48. Negative 0.048. Sorry, my words weren't coming out. Okay, the other way you could have done it is if you have 0.24 over 5. Well, no, I'm just going to leave it like that. That's really the only way to do it. There are other ways to do it. This is the best way. Let me just leave it at that. Okay, now go ahead and do your practice, and you're done for this lesson. I encourage you to check your work to make sure you got the answers correct, okay? I also want you to come back and watch this because I want you to actually mimic mine. I want to see it done line by line. I believe the solutions manual also shows it line by line. If you just tell me x equals the answer without doing the line by line like we did above, it's actually not correct. Okay, so be very careful on this one. All right, so first thing I want to do is change this into an improper fraction. So that's 8 9/8 x equals 36. Multiply by the reciprocal, which is 8 9ths. Those cancel out, and I get 36. 9 goes into that 4 times. 9 goes in itself once, so it looks like we get x equals 32. Okay. And the next one is, we're going 6 7/2 A equals 490. Multiply by the reciprocal, and we get A equals 490. Okay, well 7 goes into 49 7 times, so it goes into 490 70 times. And it goes into itself once. 70 times 2 is 14 with a 0. 140. Okay. Next one. I think these are fun personally, so I hope you're enjoying yourself as much as I am. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3 is 11/4. W equals 6 times 5 is 30 plus 3, so we get 33/5. Multiply by the reciprocal. And isn't it nice that they gave us stuff that cancel out? It's like they want to be nice to us. So we get W equals 7/5. And remember, we can leave it as an improper fraction. And it's not 7/5. I bet a lot of you just got really excited there for a minute. It's 3 times 4, so that is 12/5. Sorry if you thought you were going to give me a call. All right, the next one is 3 times 2 plus 2, 6, 7, 8 thirds. Y equals 5 plus 4 is 9/5. Multiply by the reciprocal, and we get Y equals, all right, I don't see anything that can cancel out. We get 27/40. And I believe 27 only has a few factors that go into it, and that is 1, 3, 9, 27. So we're actually done there with that. Okay, now we're going to go into some negatives. Okay, so we're going to divide both sides by -3. Okay, so x equals, now one way we can do this, well, again, it's negative because there's one negative in that problem, and I still go back to making sure I got my decimal in the right spot. So I might go, okay, 3 goes into 4 once. Long division there is still a use for it in cases like this, to make sure you get your decimal in the right spot. Okay, so -0.15. All right, this one. Now my F is in the way, but here I'm going to turn that into a times. -4/3 times -4/3. And so now we get a positive 1m. And we've got one negative in this multiplication problem, so I know the answer is a negative, okay? And I don't see any canceling that can be done, so it's -8/9. And there is our answer. Okay, last two. Now we're going to divide by -10. Okay, that's the nice thing, is when we're dividing by 10, we just move decimals, right? Okay, now is this going to be positive or negative? I have a negative divided by a negative. That turns the whole thing into a positive. So 1.6 divided by 10 moves that decimal over, and it becomes 0.16. Because it becomes smaller. 1.6 becomes smaller to 0.16, okay? And it's positive. And the last one, change it into an improper fraction. 4 5/2, W equals 9 10/3. Okay, times -2/5 times -2/5. And that's nice. We have something that can cancel out. So 5 goes into 10 twice, goes into himself once. 2 times -2 is a -4/3. And there we go. Okay, that was it. Hopefully it didn't take too long. It was actually pretty fun for me. Again, I want to make sure that you guys show the line-by-line solving of these equations. And I'll see you on the